Hello, welcome to Harmonious World. My name's Hilary Seabrook. Harmonious World has been inspired by a Quincy Jones quote that goes something like, imagine what a harmonious world it would be if everyone shared a little of what they're good at. So this podcast is about that. It's about musicians sharing what they are good at. If you look back on the archive of episodes, you'll see some amazing names, some really big names, and some people who are just starting out. And I hope you enjoy listening to a few of the other episodes. Alongside Harmonious World, my blog contains album and live performance reviews, and all the links are in the show notes. For this episode, I'm joined by bassist Quinn Sternberg, currently in Asheville, North Carolina, although he's had several years working as a full-time musician in New Orleans. Quinn's new album, Pleasant Returns, is out on the 4th of April, and what you're listening to now is Any Day Now. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Quinn Sternberg. Welcome to Harmonious World, and I'm joined by Quinn Sternberg. Hello, Quinn.
Hello, good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. It's a real pleasure, and we're going to be talking a lot about your album, Pleasant Returns, which is out in a few days.
Yeah, April 4th.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so can you talk to me about when you wrote these tracks?
Yeah, so these have kind of been on the back burner for a bit. I live in North Carolina and have for the last year and a half, but I wrote these probably 2 years ago when I was living in New Orleans before I was aware I was going to move. So these were kind of songs that we had just started rehearsing that might have been recorded like 2 years ago, but they kind of took the back seat. And that's sort of part of the idea with the album title is it was nice to come back to them, and they kind of took on a new meaning with different things going on in my life.
Absolutely brilliant. Is there some building work going on or something, or is it a dog or something? What is it?
Let me extract this bone from this.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's one of the louder bones she has.
Right. Will she be all right without it?
Yeah, she'll manage.
Okay, good.
So I moved for a partner of mine got a new job, and we had kind of been discussing maybe moving in the next couple of years, but it was just an opportunity that came really quick. So we just packed up and left, and in 2 weeks figured make it work. And yeah, it's been cool. I'm in Asheville, and I had only been to Asheville one time for a day before, so I didn't really know what I was getting into, but really cool community and music scene here. And
well, that's what I was going to ask you, because obviously moving away from New Orleans is a big musical wrench.
Yeah.
So what is the scene like in Asheville?
It's cool. It's a smaller place, a pretty tight-knit community. You kind of can get to know everyone pretty quick. And I'd say in New Orleans, you can I did a lot of different things, but you could kind of exist as just a jazz musician in New Orleans. I was doing definitely mostly that. Whereas to make it happen in a smaller place, I've branched out a bit more. I'll play some bluegrass, which is kind of the main thing happening there. I'll still doing a lot of jazz. There's a funk scene. So it's kind of more eclectic, which I kind of like to keep things interesting, but and a lot more driving. You do kind of regional gigs. I play in South Carolina a good bit and other parts of the state. So,
right. Yeah. But it's exciting to have new influences and new things that drive your music. And I'm a great believer in playing in different styles and with different formats as well.
I agree. Yeah. I think it makes everything you do better if you add new influences.
Absolutely, because I think it's too easy sometimes to sort of stick in your lane and not see what else is going on. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. So Pleasant Returns was recorded
Y-
in North Carolina.
It actually, I actually went back to New Orleans for it because I had kind of written the songs with the people in mind that I'd been recording with for years, and so that's a very kind of literal interpretation of the album title. It's just nice to go back home and see my pals for a few days. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's nothing better than being in a recording studio with friends.
definitely. Yeah, it was a fun couple days.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this your first album of original tracks?
It's actually going to be my fifth.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, I started my first one I put out like a week after graduating college, and it's kind of been somewhere between one every year to 3 years since then.
Right. Okay. That's really good. But as I said, I really like this one. And one of the tracks that I wanted to talk to you about particularly is Regal Duties. So I'd like to
Yeah,
play an extract from that first.
yeah, go for it.
So I love the bass opening on that, particularly. How did you write that? Did you write it on the bass? Did you write it using piano? How did you go about writing that one?
Yeah, I write pretty much everything on piano, and that one is pretty kind of out of left field a little bit. There's some odd phrasing and time signature stuff. It's mostly in 5/4 with a couple measures of four kind of thrown in, but um I think that one I did kind of have a bass line in mind. I was just playing on left hand of the piano, and it came together pretty quick in comparison to some of the others, because a lot of my compositions have like a melody, then a solo section with different chord changes and like an interlude to get back to but this one it's more like straightforward, just jazz head chart, if you will.
Yeah, except that the time signatures are all over the place, so it's not
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, with many wrenches. Yeah.
absolutely. And how did you go about the recording process? Did you sort of all go into the studio together and just sit and play, or how did it work?
Yeah, it was we were all in one room, which was nice. My last couple albums have kind of mixed electric and acoustic instruments, and the production of it had more like effects added and whatnot. So it was kind of nice to get back to just kind of the classic. We all are, there's bleed in the microphone, so we just have to play a live take and nail it.
Yeah,
But it was a short trip there, so we just had a 1 day rehearsal beforehand. But I'm try to be pretty meticulous with the charts, so there's not too much explanation that needs to go in before we can play.
Right. That's sensible, I think. Um, and so are you going to be touring this album?
I'd like to. We have a release show in a couple weeks. I'm touring on another friend of mine's album release tour like a week after I put this album out. So maybe I'll get to mine a couple months after that. But
Right.
yeah,
Funnily enough, I just spoke to a sax player who's doing something very similar. And actually, I've just
yeah,
spoken to a singer who's about to do the same thing, where you kind of do your own thing and then you suddenly have to do a tour for somebody else's album and you want to do your own, but you're doing this thing.
yeah.
So,
There's pros and cons to. I will say it's a lot easier just hopping in the van for someone else's tour.
sure.
But yeah,
You just,
I'll get to mine eventually.
yeah, it's easier when you just have to turn up and do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background, Quinn? How did you end up in New Orleans in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm from Bloomington, Indiana, which is a college town that has a great jazz program that was founded by David Baker. And it was a good place to a lot of musicians come out of there because you're kind of in this incubator where you're seeing that jazz faculty all the time growing up. And I ended up going to the school there. And I'd say throughout my college experience, it's kind of jazz overload when you're in one of those programs. And I was sort of into groovier music as well. So when I was thinking about somewhere to move after college, the thought of learning more about funk appealed to me about New Orleans. And I like warm weather.
Yeah.
I like good food, and the rent was very cheap back then. So I figured I'd give it a shot, and it was great. I was there for 7 years.
Wow. Let's talk about the people who are on the album. So,
Yeah.
you say the others on the album are from New Orleans and people you knew from there. So, how did
Yeah.
you go about selecting them?
Um, they've been on these three guys have been on it'll be the third album we've kind of done together. And there's a ton of fantastic musicians in New Orleans who do a wide range of things, but this type of music is a little more niche there, the kind of straight eight contemporary thing. And these guys occur on a lot of those albums. They really do fantastic job.
Yeah.
So it's Peter Varnado on drums, who is from New Orleans, and he now tours with the Preservation Hall Jazz Band and does a lot of really cool things there. Friend Oscar Rossignoli was on keyboards. He's from Honduras originally, and is kind of like the mainstay of New Orleans piano, especially for contemporary stuff. And the sax player Sam Taylor is one of my closest friends who moved to the city like the same month I did. So we kind of found our way in the city together.
Oh, very good. Yeah, and I've interviewed Oscar Rossignoli for.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that's really nice. So I should put a link in the show notes to that episode as well. Good. So you're on a tour at the moment with another album.
With my friend Charlie Ballantyne, who's a great guitarist I've been playing with for over a decade, but he's in Baltimore now. And we recorded a trio album with the drummer Dan Weiss and are going on tour with a drummer named Paul Wells, kind of getting up from the Midwest to Toronto.
Right. Excellent. And have you got another album in the pipeline?
Yeah, I normally I'm pretty stir crazy with things. So I normally have by the time I've gone through the process of mixing and mastering and figuring out all the promotion and rollout plan, I normally have a lot of new music written. So I have another batch that could be recorded soon.
Right.
No rush, but
no.
Yeah.
Very good. Let the dust settle on Pleasant Returns first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regroup.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, well, it was really nice to talk to you, Quinn. Thank you for joining me for this.
Thanks so much for having me on. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to that conversation with Quinn Sternberg. What you're listening to now is Stretch from Quinn's album Pleasant Returns. Please remember you can find albums, live gig reviews all on the blog hilaryseabrook.blogger.com, or there's a link in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed listening to Harmonious World, and do get in touch anytime if you've got any comments. And I hope you have a very good week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.